You've been declared Oxford East's parliamentary candidate for the Green Party. Do you think if standing for Parliament and if you were to be elected to Parliament, you'd have to do less human rights campaigning? You wouldn't have as much time?
Well, the way I see it is standing for Parliament and hopefully being elected is a way to carry my human rights work into the parliamentary arena and hopefully to get even more recognition for the causes that I espouse. So it's not either or, it's what I do existingly, but in addition as well.
Oxford East is an interesting seat, actually, because, I mean, the Green Party there last time didn't even hold the deposit, I don't think. And it's quite a marginal between Labour and the Lib Dems. Do you really think you can win there, or do you just think you'll be helping Labour to stay in that seat if you take Lib Dem votes away?
Well, what's happened since the last general election is that in local elections, the Greens have now shot up to 21% of the local vote. And it's a four-way split, fairly even, between Labour, Lib Dem, Green and Conservative. The Conservatives don't stand a chance, but there is a viable push and contention between Labour, Lib Dem and Green. So my theory is, if all the people who voted Green in the local elections in Oxford also vote Green in the general election, and we get a few more disaffected Tories, disaffected Labour, disaffected Lib Dems, then the Green Party can win this seat, possibly on 28 or 30% of the vote.
But people in local elections vote for very different reasons than they do in a general election. They're just looking at their waste and issues like that. Whereas in a general election, they're thinking about different issues, and also you have a higher turnout during general elections. So do you not think that you may be being a bit too over-optimistic about the seat?
No, you're right. There is a difference between the two, and I'm not saying it's a shoo-in by a long shot. It's going to be a hard slog, but I can tell you that working on the ground, knocking on doors, doing street stalls, the mood from a lot of people in Oxford East is that it's time for change. They feel that Andrew Smith's been in there all those years. He's been associated with so many negative policies like supporting the war in Iraq, advocating a new generation of nuclear power stations, supporting student top-up fees and the privatisation of the health service and so on. They're fed up with those kind of politics. They want to change. They see the Lib Dems as being rather ineffectual. As you probably know, on Oxford City Council, 2 Lib Dems have defected to the Tories. People see the Lib Dems in many cases as, Tories light. Well, they want change.
Well, the Lib Dems there have been the second party in that constituency for a number of years, so it would seem that people there who want change have been moving towards the Lib Dems rather than towards the Greens.
Well, that's maybe partly because, no disrespect to my predecessors, but the Greens didn't have a high-profile candidate. And, as I say, recently there's quite a move away from the Lib Dems. Particularly a lot of people are very angry that the Lib Dems are backing the big corporations who are behind the expanded Westgate shopping centre. They're very angry that the Lib Dems have been behind the felling of the trees in Oxford recently. And they're very angry that 2 of the Lib Dems have defected to the Tories. And people turn around and say, well, look, these Lib Dems, they're just Tories in disguise. Why didn't they become independents? Why didn't they join Labour or the Greens?
Okay, we're rapidly running out of time as you've got a big talk to give. But if I could just ask you a quick question. You may need to think about it, though. Would you say there's one moment in your campaigning career that stands out as the greatest achievement you've made?
That is a $64 question. $64,000 question. $64 million question. I couldn't identify any one single campaign. I think there's been lots of high moments, like invading the pulpit of the Archbishop of Canterbury and announcing his support for homophobic discrimination, the 2 ambushes of President Robert Mugabe in protest at the human rights abuses in Zimbabwe, the ambush of Tony Blair's motorcade in protest at the Iraq War. There are lots and lots and lots of things, but all I can say is I've done what I believed in. I've done my best. I haven't always succeeded, but I think most of these campaigns have raised awareness, and that's the purpose of doing these protests. It's a recognition. I don't have huge power. I haven't got any power. But what I can do is stage dramatic, symbolic protests that raise awareness about human rights abuses and which then get picked up by members of parliament, by NGOs and human rights bodies, and they take it forward.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for listening to Political Animal.